one of the beings who has written a very useful book at one stage of one's journey is Uspensky, who was a student of Gurdjieff and a philosopher in his own right. And he said, and he explained on page 5 why it is that he isn't a realized being. Although I don't think he meant to say it quite that way. And he's describing different schools and what they taught, different secret schools. And he says, there was another type of school with which I was unable to make contact and of which I only heard. These schools promised very much, but they also demanded very much. They demanded everything at once. It would have been necessary to stay in India and give up thoughts of returning to Europe, to renounce all my own ideas, aims, and plans, and proceed along a road of which I could know nothing beforehand. These schools interested me very much, and the people who had been in touch with them and who told me about them stood out distinctly from the common type. But still it seemed to me that there ought to be schools of a more rational kind, and that a man had the right, up to a certain point, to know where he was going. That a man had the right, up to a certain point, to know where he was going. See, Uspensky wasn't willing to do that one thing, to give up knowing he knew. And the funny thing about the rational mind is it's taken us so far, and then it becomes the lion at the gates. It's so seductive, it looks like it's going to give us the whole business. And then, lo and behold, it holds us back at a certain point. Because we are so rewarded for knowing we know. And it's only when you come to the despair that seeing, when you look around at where man has gotten with his rational mind, and you suddenly understand that he's just going from the frying pan into the fire. And you look at the Herculean task that he has outlined for himself, and you realize that his rational mind just isn't going to be enough. I mean, you add up all the, quote, intellectuals of the world. Who do you want to put the man's destiny in? Whose hands? Herman Kahn? I don't. Who? I mean, I can't find a model. I don't see wise men. I see rational, super rationalists, McGeorge Bundy. Super rationalists, exquisite minds. But as Einstein said, when atomic energy was released for man's control and benefit, he said man must develop a higher form of thought if he is ever going to be able to use this energy with wisdom. Because his rational mind's not going to do it. It's not going to be enough. That's the despair. That's the despair. All the eggs, all the basket we put the eggs in just isn't going to make the trip to grandmother's house. It's just not going to do it. And the answer, strangely enough, is in the simple words, here and now. If you could be here and now, if you could for one moment turn off your mind, see, you don't have to listen to this lecture like you're doing. You don't have to be evaluating, categorizing, thinking about it, putting it away in storage units, analyzing the words to make sure you understand them. You can let it all go through you, just like Chinese food, and just let it go through and you'll understand it all, because there's nothing I'm saying to you that there isn't a place in you where you already know it. Now, I'm going to have to move slowly till you understand what I just told you. But you can trust. That's the first requirement, trust, you see. You've got to give up that kind of thing. You've got to give up the reaching for it to have it. As long as you reach, you can't have it. This whole trip that I'm talking about is fraught with paradoxes. The most exquisite paradoxes. As soon as you give it all up, you can have it all. How about that one? As long as you want power, you can't have it. The minute you don't want power, you'll have more than you ever dreamed possible. What a weird thing. What a weird thing. As long as you have an ego, you're on a limited trip. You're on a little trivial trip that's going to last roughly 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. Fraught with fear of its end, trying to make its own eternity, eternal name by leaving a stone building, perhaps. Being is dying by loving. Something in me must die and something new must be born. He that is born of the flesh is of the flesh. He that is born of the Spirit is of the Spirit. Unless ye be born again, ye cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. We're talking about a metamorphosis. We're talking about going from the caterpillar to the moth. We're talking about how to become butterflies. How do we become butterflies? I mean, the caterpillar that's walking around doesn't say, well, man, soon I'll be a moth. Because as long as he's being busy being a caterpillar, he can't be a moth. It's only when caterpillarness is done that one starts to become a moth. And that again is part of this paradox. You can't rip away caterpillarness. The whole trip occurs in an unfolding process over which you have no control. That's a hard one. Well, what am I doing here if I have no control? You mean I don't have any choice? Can I say this is nonsense? Can I say this is important? Your lecture changed my whole life. You think that's choice? Think that's choice? No. Not at all. It's an unfolding process. If you could stand back far enough and watch the whole process, you would see that you are a totally determined being. The moment you will wake up is totally determined. How long you will stay asleep is totally determined. What you will hear of what I say is totally determined. There are no accidents in this business at all. Accidents are just from where you're looking at it from. To the ego, it all looks like it's miracles and accidents. No miracles, no accidents.